A lot of health has to do with being in integrity. Now, what does integrity in my definition? It means you ascribe to one thing in your mind, but you act in a different way. You think you should be doing this, but you're acting like this. And what happens? It's a dis-ease. It's an uneasiness that a part of you is knowing that, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be doing this. This is not right. This is not healthy. Whatever it is, this to me is dis-ease.
Got in touch with Steve because I really wanted to talk about what are deemed miraculous or spontaneous healings, and how these have been documented in previous eras, predominantly to find out what's possible for us as human beings, and what we've seen, as I mentioned previously, and what we're missing in today's culture, which is very much focused on the mechanisms of healing to Y and it will affect X, as opposed to more faith-based in healing, that there is a higher order to things, that the human body can heal almost anything, but it takes faith in the individual to believe that that's possible for them. And yeah, you very much came to mind, Steve, with all of your knowledge in these areas, and your deep knowledge from reading so many texts.
Well, it's a very important area to me, the healing. And I want to start off with a joke and a true story, just to
Yeah,
get us in.
perfect.
So there was an older gentleman, probably in his late 80s, who wasn't doing very well. And he went to his physician for a checkup. And the physician gave him some information, but the physician didn't have a lot of hope that the man was going to live too much longer. But about 3 months later, he sees the older man out with an incredibly beautiful young woman on his arm, and looks like he's having a great life. So at the next time the patient went to the doctor says, "Wow, you were really doing fantastic. What happened?" The man says, "Doctor, I just followed everything you told me. You said to get a hot mama and be cheerful." And the doctor said, I didn't tell you that. I said you have a heart murmur and be careful." Well, why am I sharing that story? Because the man believed he had heard. He thought he heard get a hot mama and be cheerful. Now that's the joke, but here's the true story. About 40 years ago, Paul Harvey, who was a commentator on radio, told the following story, which I heard. A doctor at Harvard Medical School in the heart section was with 6 interns when he came to the bed of a man who was in a coma and expected to die at any minute. His heart was broken, basically. The beat was horrible. So the doctor puts a stethoscope on the patient and says, "I want you to listen to the wholeness of that part." And each of the 6 interns did the same thing. And they go, "Oh, yes, yes." Well, the next day, the man comes out of the coma, and a week later, he's walking around. And 2 weeks later, he's checking out of the hospital. This is a true story. The doctor said, "You're a miracle." And the man says to him, "Well, that's not what you told me." And the doctor said, "What did I tell you?" And the man said, "Well, when you said it was okay and 6 other doctors agreed, I thought I was okay and my heart was whole." Well, not only did he think that, Paul, but the examination of his heart showed, guess what? It was operating perfectly. The man is in a coma. So I wanted to start us off with that so people will understand there is much more going on in this physical reality. And if anybody doubts my stories, look into placebos. And I have done full just placebo effect. And when I'm through, everybody is disjointed and confused because they cannot believe what's happened when people believe something that, quote, on science was not true. So here we go again, dude, people's belief systems. And what are belief systems? Now, generally, belief systems are inherited or they're part of our consciousness. It's what people have told us. And sometimes we inherit these views through our culture, tone, people's actions. We just expect that things are going to be a certain way. And because of that, we also act under the assumption something is going to manifest in the way that we all believe it is going to happen. Now, I'm going to be careful here because I don't want to make this a on and on lecture, but I at least want to get our this point solid that belief in this environment, in our world, in this reality, sets the tone to what we also expect to happen. And there's a difference again, which we'll talk about during our session here, or sharing between belief and faith, because belief is an intellectual concept, and faith is a deeper, it goes beyond just the intellectual. And I came up with a quote not too long ago myself. It just came to me. Belief is the path they draw in the sand, and faith is the wing that teaches us to fly. It brings us beyond. So this is where I would like to start our sharing, and we can elaborate on again the points I shared with you.
That was a beautiful start, and I really, the way I view it is very much, it was exactly as you've just listed it. We lack the faith that we can heal, and given the fall of faith in, I'm talking more collectively, a faith in, say, a religious organization or a higher power to heal us. The faith now is in the scientific model. Yet, when you go to any hospital for healing, which is healing and hospitals don't really go together, they sort of patch you up and send you on your way. More often than not, they'll do the complete opposite of that belief that you can heal or that faith that you can heal. They'll give you a prognosis, they'll point the stick at you, they'll tell you all the things which are wrong. They'll give you all the medications and they'll give you the statistical likelihood of you surviving, which is contrary to faith in the fact that you can heal yourself. And yet you've given all of your power over to this model, to this. And it's not to say I'm not painting this in a binary that, oh, isn't Western medicine terrible and shouldn't we go back? No. There's incredible things with Western medicine and the scientific model and what it's created, but it's balancing it between the magic of the body or the genius of the body to heal itself.
No,
Sorry, go on.
you're very right. And another thing that you um, asked me about when we decided to do this was, what did the ancients believe? What did they think about healing and the body? Um, they absolutely did not believe in miracles. Here's what they believed. They believed that there were laws that had not been realized yet. And in the ancient mystery schools that people hear about that study esoteric and philosophy, what were those mystery schools? Why were they a mystery and what were they actually teaching? And what it was to know thyself. This was the great admonition on the temple walls. Know thyself. And we have gone further and further away because of what you just shared, Paul, that we have drawn everything onto somebody else. You're the one who's going to make me whole. You're going to help me here, and I want it done real fast, so I don't even have to look at why I might even have generated this problem. I just like to take it away. Knowing thyself is such a deep philosophical principle. And there were many things that were taught in those ancient schools. Now, it was a mystery back then. Most people really wouldn't understand. Now, there's some people today who still play around here. Though I'm going to teach you the secrets. I share the same thing in an hour with people, and I don't charge them to do 6 week courses. There is a deeper aspect within us. Paul Brunton and Emerson both spoke about it. Paul Brunton called it the overself. Emerson called it the oversoul. It is this greater part of ourself that when individuals get in alignment with that aspect, everything is possible. It's not a miracle. It is what this higher self, us, it's not some stranger. It is an aspect of us that can do these things instantly. When you look at the placebo effect and you see there were things that were done, and I look at them now and go, oh my gosh, that could never be done today. They had heart patients who they cut open but never did the surgery, and every one of them recovered because they believed that they had the surgery. Now, I think of the legal things that could really be impossible now. But when you go on and on from every aspect of the physical and how it should have reacted based on our belief and our scientific knowledge, the body should do this. You can throw all that out the window. So when I hear about science based medicine, I sit and go, what is that? Science changes every day. They have a new law. And medicine now, and again, I'm not anti medicine, but look at the TV commercials. The side effects are getting so dramatically ludicrous that people have to ask themselves, if I had a cholesterol problem, why would I want to get a rare but fatal brain disease or become suicidal? Or I'm snickering here because one of them I heard was, tell your doctor if you have a sudden urge to gamble. Where would that ever come from? From taking the medication. So the mind and the body and the substances that are coming in are messing up who we are and who we should know about knowing thyself. And before you and I finish today, I am going to give some direction to that, but I want to go with you mess around with people's minds. These people who believe, no, it's back in science. Read placebo. In the original days of placebo study, a drug had to outperform the placebo by X% to go on the market. And then, Paul, guess what? The placebo percentage started to get higher and higher. So it used to be 20%. It gets up to 60 and 70%. And so they can't use that anymore. Now, why is it up so high? How how could that be? And the doctors will go, oh, it was just in somebody's mind. Well, yes,
Yeah.
perhaps we should go further into that.
I love the way that is dismissed with the placebo. It's just the placebo, just the body healed itself without any medical intervention. It tells you everything about the current thinking and the dismissal of how powerful we are.
Well,
And almost more, sorry, go on.
no, please. You.
No, I was just going to say also, but more nefariously, like how much we are in a system of where it's expected you subjugate yourself to an authority or to someone who knows best. And it's not to say there aren't mechanistic triggers for poor health. Of course there are, and there aren't people who understand those. But it's so much more complex and nuanced, the healing methodologies. And I mean, look at quantum biology, which is gaining more and more traction, even though it is just based in what the ancients knew, a lot of it. And it's quite simple principles such as grounding, putting your bare feet in the earth, sun, water. but there's so much that goes on to signal to the body correct health that is in harmony with the natural forces of the earth which we are from. And when we remove ourselves from any natural forces, and indeed tell the public en masse that the sun is terrible for you, you need to get out of it, that you need to be wearing Nikes if you step on anything outside, because God knows you need foam between yourself and the earth. All of these things that disconnect us from the source of which we're born, it's little wonder. Them add the chemical soup that we swim in. Sorry, it's getting negative, but I'll come back to a positive. But then you can't expect people to be healthy. And I guess the crux of why I wanted to speak with you is that know thyself for me also stems to love thyself.
Yes.
And we live also in a culture that makes people feel that they're not enough through all the advertisements, through all the materialism. And so I don't want to go too far off piece because we'll bring it back. But it's very much comes the simplicity of once you love yourself and you begin to understand yourself, the simplicity of healing just naturally occurs. I guess is what I'm trying. The solution is not complex.
You're very, very right, and that's why I said I am asked so many times by people in a variety of topics. Um, can you do a 6 week course, or let's do levels, and we can make a lot of money? And I say no. You go, why? I said because I can share with somebody needs less than an hour. How am I going to go? It goes back to exactly what you just shared. It has to do with understanding. That you are not sinful or guilty. You know, I brought that in because a lot of people feel they don't deserve to be well. I'm being punished. I know. I've often said that a lot of health has to do with being in integrity. Now, what does integrity in my definition? It means you ascribe to one thing in your mind, but you act in a different way. You think you should be doing this, but you're acting like this. And what happens? It's a dis-ease. It's an uneasiness that a part of you is knowing that, oh my gosh, I I shouldn't be doing this. This is not right. This is not healthy. Whatever it is, this to me, Paul, is dis-ease. Now, somebody can be a burglar or a thief, but if they're in integrity, they're not going to be ill. Conversely, somebody can be helping people through some climatic situation. Nature does it. This person is saving people left and right. And let's say they're a diabetic and they don't follow a concept and they end up getting a reaction or falling. And people will go, I don't understand God. What happened there? The person was helping all these people. Everything has to do with being integrity within your own being. And if you are, you're not going to have a disease and you are not going to be sick. Manly Hall, a great philosopher, who's passed away now, but many people said, health does not mean that you are not sick at that moment, because you and I can feel perfectly well, and then 1 minute later we're sneezing or something, and we've got a headache and feel bad. Health is when you've eliminated all the factors that might make you ill in the next hour, day, or year. That is true health. So somebody can feel healthy at one moment, but it has to do with, I'm going to face it back to what you see. When one loves themselves, when one looks at themselves as a unique being, there is less likelihood that you're going to become ill because you're not letting all the outside noise or what people's other beliefs are affecting you. I am a good person. It's the same thing with you're born in sin. That is such absolute nonsense, but that takes a whole plethora of people thinking, I'm bad, I'm horrible, I deserve this, I deserve. Let's make a statement right on your show. We're all good. We all have unlimited potential. You don't have to be a librarian. I have seen unbelievable instantaneous feelings of the worst problems you can imagine. I have personally witnessed everything that I share is real and it's there and everybody can do it. It has to do with the points that we're sharing. It's very interesting that um, Jesus said in the Bible, for people in the Bible, and by the way, faith to me, people immediately go, oh, it has to do with religion. It does not just stay with religion, it goes beyond there. But Jesus said, your faith has made you whole. Why didn't he say, I made you whole? He did not say that. He said, your faith, the environment that you have set, has made you whole. And therefore, the greatest healers do not heal the other person. They create the environment where an individual's inner healer does the work. That is what I know to be true. And healers who are very profound also know that. They're setting up the environment. So if the healer within a person is doing it, every single person on this planet, everybody you know and I know that is ill, can instantaneously be healed, Paul, if they let their inner healer do its job.
It's funny with medications as well. People will say, well, it was the medication that healed me, or it was the chemo that healed me, when it's the body that heals you. Like, it's actually the body that's doing the work. More often than not, these things can actually impinge that process.
That's right.
But it's always, regardless of what the methodology is, it's the body that is doing the healing. And it's miraculous when you just observe in yourself. I recently I did quite a nasty thing to my foot, and just watching the process of the body slowly heal it, and to the point of where it's completely disappeared. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's we just expect these things as rote, as opposed to that's a miracle that our bodies can do that.
Well, any doctor who really is worth their salt and honest will tell you that they don't heal anybody. The body obviously heals itself. And it can be done in such rapid speed. Um, in my 52 years of being in this field and going around the world and meeting people, um, it is this aspect behind the body. It is this higher self, oversoul that can do incredibly fast, broad, instantaneous healings of the body. And we're going to do the best by sharing with your audience that you don't have to be a guru. You don't have to be from the East. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be holy to have these things happen. But I would ask anybody who might be listening who is in a health challenge to ask themselves to go a little deeper within and see if they're not holding some kind of belief, Paul, that I earned it, I deserve it, it was going to happen, it's happened to other members of my family, therefore it's got to happen to me. These are belief systems. And I started with those jokes of what people believe, and they believed the positive and it happened. But our belief systems also can inundate us with this negative, dark concept. Oh, nobody ever comes back from this. This is a death sentence. This is a one-way ticket. They're already giving up and not allowing that inner healer to work, to do it. So how do we transcend it? How do we go if somebody has been inundated by this more negative belief environment? It's going to go back to understanding that belief, is the paintbrush that creates our reality. Our belief has manifested exactly what we have now. We create, and that is a metaphysical principle. It's been here for thousands and tens of thousands of years. We will draw to us what we believe. Our world will be created based on our thoughts. Now, what is the strongest element that will bend this belief system and reality? It's a four-letter word, L-O-V-E. This is the secret that the alchemists were using. People hear about alchemists changing base metals into gold, and they had all these formulas and funky things. But if you really understand and read, every one of them talked about love. The strongest vibration in the universe is love, not just this planet, it's love. Now, when you get into that vibration of love, all things are then possible and it can be rectified immediately. Now, how can we have some proof of that? A great healer named James Rogers Newton, who lived in the middle to late 1800s, cured 250,000 people surely with love. His healings were attested to by mayors, lawyers, governors, sheriffs, newspaper writers. He loved people into total health. I was able to obtain his book that he wrote in the 1800s called The Modern Bethesda, and now it's finally been reprinted and it's available at places like Amazon, and even on my website, The Modern Bethesda. 250,000 people. Now, what was the secret? He found out that the secret of healing had to do with love. I tell someone I love them, I show them I loved them, and the disease must depart. That was the secret of healing. And if you go into a story about how he came upon this and what he did, it's incredible. But that's more modern person than someone 2,000 years ago. This is concurrent. These are documented. And it was everything you could think about. Blindness, people paralyzed 15 years, in 10 minutes got up and walked, their legs straightened up. It wasn't through religion, it was done through love.
God, it's so when you're telling me this about people getting part of my old brain is thinking that's impossible to speak to the power of beliefs, because you and I were obviously brought up in a culture that would say that was impossible.
Yes, because that is, let's look at The Matrix. My wife and I love watching that series. The Matrix, the belief that this is how everything is, this is how it goes. We want to say, oh, that was done because this fellow is from the East. Oh, this is done because this person believes so heavily in Jesus that they were able to levitate and do healing. People want to ascribe it to everything else other than understanding we are all the same. We are all physical human beings on this planet. And I'm going to tell you what one person can do in this area we're talking about. All people have the potentiality. The potentiality is there. Now, whether it happens, it has to do with how much faith had somebody in that it can happen. It doesn't have to be. It can be. You believe in a higher power, and yes, that will work and has worked in thousands of churches across the world. But it doesn't have to just be the religious. It has to be that you deserve it. You feel, and I'm not talking, does one deserve to have it? I will venture to say the majority of people, your signs, my signs, any people's friends who are ill, if you really question them, they're going to tell you they don't like something going on in their life. You may have done something back here that they're not happy about. Things are catching up with them. Well, I'm going to tell you, in my 52, 54 years of the most, quote, miraculous things I've seen, all that is nonsense. And I don't care what anybody has done in the past. It's what you do through here forward. All things are possible. Make no boundaries. I can give you example after example. Instantaneous. There is something in the psychology books that they generally don't want you to know about. It has to do with uh, an individual whose name is Mr. Wright. And Dr. Kaufman wrote this up in the Medical Psychological Journal. Mr. Wright had tumors on his outside of his body the size of golf balls and also inside. And he was going to die very, very soon. A new drug came out called cobiasin, which was horse extract. And so the cobiasin was put out to different hospitals. Now, Mr. Wright found out that Dr. Kothler was one of the places that was going to be testing the cobiasin. So he goes to the doctor and says, "Can you please include me?" And the doctor said, "No, there are certain protocols that we have to follow. Patients have to have a life expectancy of at least a year and all this." And Mr. Wright says to him, "What if you find out it works, but you didn't give it to me?" So the doctor said, "Okay, I'm going to give it to you on the side, but you're not going to be included in the trials." So he gives it to him. And again, in the medical journals, within a week, every tumor on his outside and inside of the body had vanished. He leaves the hospital. He takes up flying, which is what he originally did. And then in the newspapers, it was reported cobiasin was fake, it didn't work, it wasn't any good. And Mr. Wright reads that, and he manifested all the tumors again. All of them big, but almost instantaneous, goes back in the hospital. Now, the doctor sees this and goes, "This is medically really impossible physically to happen." So he tells Mr. Wright, "You know, I now have a double strength cobias." So he gives it to them. The tumors melted like snowballs. That is how the article is. The tumors melted like snowballs. Out he goes again flying. Now cobiasin ends up being banned in the world. It doesn't work. And Mr. Wright was dead in 2 weeks, purely by belief. Now, Koffler writes in this report, he didn't know this, but he had the placebo and not the real cobiatin.
So yeah,
Now think about that. I want you to
I know
really
that.
think about this. Not only did this guy believe that it was the real medication, it wasn't. So people need to inundate themselves again. If you can manifest tumors back and forth the size of snowballs within days, why can't you get rid of anything that you have? Because
Mm,
now I hear someone in the audience going, "Well, that was that guy, and maybe it's not going to work for me." That maybe is why it's not working.
it's that doubt. Yeah.
We need
I was
to.
gonna. No, no. I was just gonna add to that is that seed of doubt, and then what you said before about people feeling they deserve they either deserve the illness because they've done something wrong in their life, or it's some sort of subconscious self-loathing or
Yes.
self-hatred or a lack of self-love where they and also what you alluded to earlier with you're out of integrity, so your life you're doing one thing when your heart knows it should be doing another, which I actually believe is the cause of most people's rapid aging, is that they're forcing themselves to do things which is not authentic to who they are. If you
Yes.
look at on that, and I'm going to circle back, so I have a tendency to go off on tangents, but if you look at people, say musicians who've done every drug under the sun, they've done all the wrong things from a health perspective, yet they still look bloody great. It's because they're in alignment with who they are, so that
Yes.
they're feeling the good vibrations of the music, which we know now how powerful sound is for healing. So all of that is continually regenerating the body, plus their thoughts of being young and all of these other things, which culminate in them actually staying vibrant for a much longer time than someone who's drunk the perfect water or ate the perfect diet, yet they drag themselves to a job they loathed. So, but to come back to just the disease aspect and the health, what would you say to somebody who, I mean, what is that? Look, there's probably no silver bullet, but what is a pathway to start to look at what questions can they ask that is blocking that healing from happening?
Well, I've had a philosophy for about 42 years, which I coined as LEFL, L-E-F-L. It stands for laughter, excitement, fun, and love. So when I would do counseling, people would come to me, I'd check their levelometer. I might do this. I go, call. When was the last time you laughed? Well, you laugh, see, but look, here's somebody will go, wow, what what do you do for excitement and fun? Oh, my job. Wait a minute. You have an ulcer from your job. What you have anything that you cherish, you love? I check a levelometer. And when somebody's devoid in any of those, they're ill. If somebody has all those, they have laughter and joy in their life. They have something to look forward to. They have excitement. They do things that are fun. Sometimes I told people who really have bad problems, go to a park, take your shoes off, and play in the grass. Or told someone, you need to go I don't know if you have in Australia, miniature golfing or hut
Yeah,
park.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Definitely
Like,
got miniature
you need
golfing.
to do
Yeah.
that. And they go, what? How is that going to help? You need to act like a child again. You need to go back to that vibration. People are hardened with what's going on and they buy into it and they dive into it and they immerse themselves instead of going back to the simplistic. Everything I've ever done with people has been the easy way. Sometimes people try to make it too difficult because that is what the mind is trying to do. Look at our brains and our mind are set up that everything has to be structured or we can't function. And that structuring leads to the belief, which leads to the confinement, which leads to the problem. Because that is how the mind operates. The heart does not play at that. And when we talk about the faith going beyond just the intellect, you're breaking through that boundary. It is there. Gosh, I can't recall, and usually I'm better. There was a very famous person who was in the hospital dying and started bringing it to the hospital every video of comedy and laughing. And he laughed his way right out of the hospital and his disease and malaise. And normally I'm much better than this. Um, remembering exactly who that was, but I bet if somebody Googled the doctor who brought the videos into the hospital, he laughed his way, and then he spent the rest of his life sharing with people, and he was a doctor. Sometimes the easy way is the way to get out of it. Now, somebody could say, "Oh my gosh, right? I've got a diagnosis. You have cancer. or MS and it's horrible. And you're just telling me laughing is going, yes, I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
that. I have 52 years where I've seen all kinds of things on every corner of this world. Everything is possible. But if you think it's not, guess what? It's not going to happen to you. You have to change. One has to change their attitude that all things are possible. I'm going to get back to my source. What is my source? I have an inner soul, spiritual self. You don't have to get religious. Just know that there's more going on. And if anybody emails me, I'd like to send a picture. It's a drawing that's called Rumi's Higher Self, the great poet. And it's a beautiful picture of Rumi and this higher self. So the people will start understanding this concept that there is more than what your eyes are seeing. Your eyes are being tricked. You've fallen into a belief. Paul, think of four people driving in a car. They can be men, women, and the negative person driving and looks out and sees somebody cutting somebody off or fighting. The other person who everything is great is looking out going, oh my God, but it's a
Sky. Yeah.
beautiful sky and the clouds. You will find exactly what you are looking. What you perceive is what you're going to draw in to your reality. So when you're drawing in love and humor and positivity, that is what your world will now become. I'm not giving some kind of new thing. These are thousands of year old precepts that the great philosophers of all time spoke about. What you believe, what you can see is what you're going to manifest. And if you listen to the negative people, that's going to be your vibration.
What do you think, Steve, as well about this? And this is a potentially might sound like a oh, what's the word? This might sound contradictory to what you just said, but I think it's exactly the same, but just on a different bandwidth, where people will, and it comes down very much to knowing thyself and what you can control and what you can't control, and for me, the way I view it is a lot to do with surrendering to what you can control and letting go of what you can't control. So a lot of people who when I look at them and they're ill, they have a very fixed idea of what reality needs to look like. And if that reality does not match their perception of self or how people need to treat them or be, it affects them. They become stressed out over the fact that someone was perceived as being rude, however that is. So the world needs to look like this, otherwise I'm not safe in the world or I'm not
And,
respected. And it's like,
and Paul, you just said the key words, fix. How can anything change when they are fixed? I didn't even interrupt you, but I didn't want
yeah,
you to pass by that point.
no,
They have
that's the
the
key.
fixed, then it's all over.
Yeah.
It's all over
This is
because
who I am. This is the way it's always been for
and
me.
this is how
Yeah.
the end is going to manifest because I believe when you have cancer, when you have MS, when you have arthritis, when you have this is what's going to happen. It, it's fixed. So if somebody says, well, why me? You go, get out of that fixed attitude. Open it up that all things are possible. Make no boundaries. And then
Mm,
guess the healing energy can come in. But fixed, you explained it perfectly. Why does it happen for some people and not another person? Because one person expects this is how it's going to end up. And the other person says, you know what? I've tried everything else. I give up. Guess what? There is a
mm.
story for those people who are biblical of a guy putting ashes over saying, God, you're not listening to me. And it's horrible. And I love you. And then when he finally quieted down, God came and said, finally, you shut up. And now this individual led to two great cultures. That is for those people who are religious. Now, for the other people, There are examples all through time of individuals who had that instantaneous healings. And I'm going to say it again. I have personally witnessed and been a part of this my entire adult life. Nothing is impossible, including we can affect nature. You can affect the wind. You can affect many things. Now that maybe that'll be another time you and I get together. We can talk about broadening this out. It just know everything is possible, but you
Mm.
don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get expensive courses. It all is up here. We create everything. We can manifest anything in our life. If you open, if one, I don't mean to ever make it you, if one opens up themselves to unlimited possibilities, the media, all this stuff in the world, including AI, is forcing us into outside. We can't do anything. We can't think anything. We can't create anything. It's horrible right now for a lot of people who are just following along, thinking there's no hope and there's no possibility. And I'm glad that somebody like you exists with this show so that we could get this word out. Stop, stop falling for the belief of other people. Maybe the title of your show should be "The Tumors Melted Like Snowballs," because nobody would even believe that's possible. But guess what? It's in the medical literature. It's in medical literature, not just. And guess what? Placebos, they're in medical literature. Next time, if we get a chance, we'll get into the placebos all. And when your audience hears of all the things that have happened, diabetics were told that there was a new diabetic medication, and it was marketed, and yet none of them had any dietary rectified. A substance that ought absolutely causes people to throw up was given to people. They were told that it stops people from throwing up, and the people who want rebound stop throwing up with a medication that causes it. So, what we're told, if we doubt anything it falls in our find together and be it about shared with the audience, what can we really believe? What do you really believe? And now, with what the eyes say to review the people, you can't even believe videos anymore. And they're going to trick people into not really understanding we're all capable. It's like the 100th monkey. If we can get this out, if people will stop believing that things are impossible and I must be sick, we're going to get closer to the light of teachings of the masters of the Far East. It was a series written in the late 1800s about a group in India showing what is possible for human beings. Let's go back to what is possible instead of what is not possible.
Steve, I'd love to finish, and I'll start you off with just a very short story from my own life. Just,
Yes.
I believe it's a bit, for me, it was a muscle to become developed in terms of breaking the old stories and beginning to have true self belief in what was possible. And the really great thing for people to know is that once you do break that ceiling of the old stories and the old beliefs, it's broken forever. In fact, the only regret I have is not doing it sooner, and thinking, God, everything I could have, not that doing in life is the goal, but there's many things that I wanted to do that I could have achieved a lot earlier if it weren't for the fact that I just believed that I couldn't do it. I believed it wasn't for me. I believed it was for other people. All the stories that I think most, if not everyone, has come into the world with. And one of the keys for me was just having a really strong meditation practice. And you begin to see all this garbage that your brain just throws up, and fears like, oh my God, have you thought about this? Oh, you need to worry about this. Oh my God, this is going to happen. Calamity is coming. The world is about to end. And it's just a constant. And when you create the space for those just to emerge, you begin to realize that it's just a story, or it's a habit that you can break. You can have some space between, and in that space you can begin to actually insert the stories that you do want to tell about yourself, and to insert the life that you do want to have. And it's like, what's that great thing? Like, it depends what devil you feed. Like, you have two on your shoulder, and which one do you want to feed more? The life that you want, or the old life that you don't want, and you keep affirming the life you don't want because you keep talking about it. You keep telling everyone all the things which are wrong. This is just the beginning of a much broader and larger conversation. These
It,
conversations tend to be,
it,
they go in a million directions. But
I,
from your
I,
own experience, what's the key for people?
I just wrote down three things. Number one, know thyself. Number two, through all ancient times, one of the adjectives was stillness, silence. Now, somebody can call it meditation. Then people, oh no, you got to go to the east and do lotus. No,
Yeah, that could be anything.
know thyself, stillness, and love. Those are the three keys that will unlock the higher precepts and quote miraculous things that are just laws that are not understood. When I give lectures, I take a piece of paper and I just a kite that when I throw it in the air and it just goes. I fold it into a paper air cone and I sail it across the room. Now, why did I do? I used a higher law of aerodynamics to supersede the law of the paper flailing away. All through time, we use high, we never break law with what you might call a miracle. We never break laws. We use higher laws to supersede a lesser law. It's just another law. And so know thyself, stillness and silence, allowing things to come up to view, and love. So that's what I would leave you in the audience with. Those are the three keys to begin. Love, of course, is a huge subject. So let's just say, love yourself. You love yourself, that starts broadening out. It's been a key. It is the strongest vibration. I've had spiritual sources tell me that love goes far beyond the earth plane. Love is everything in the cosmos, all realities, all worlds. So know thyself, stillness, and love.
Steve, that is just. I wanted to finish with, like, love is the vibration of the planet. I mean, the trees love you. The trees are consistent.
Right,
Everything that you look out into the natural world is keeping you alive out
right.
of pure love. We're not human beings are not necessarily needed to the planet, but we're here because we're loved.
God
So
is
you're
not in the
swimming in it.
God is not in a house, in a cathedral,
Mm,
it's nature. That
yeah.
is that is when you are closest. Why? The nature is unlimited. You know, they haven't even found the boundaries to space, for God's sake. So as satellites are still going like 40 years later, it's nature, it's tuning in to the substance that love is. It's the great fount of love surrounds us every second, that you have to be open. If one is open and not castigating self, love pours in from animals, other people, and nature. So I think we'll have more to talk about sometime in the future. But Paul, again, thank you for this opportunity to share with you and the audience. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for today, and we'll definitely catch up again.